Okay, I gotta admit, I'm impressed. I didn't know what to expect from Absolute Batman. I didn't follow much of the marketing for the Absolute series. I saw the promo art and thought the chunky boy Batman looked okay, but nothing to make me run out and get the book. I also haven't read Scott Snyder's Batman run, so I had no expectations about the writing either. That said, I figured I might as well check it out, and man was that a good decision, because this book is awesome. It's rare to see a fresh take on well-established characters that's genuinely interesting, especially when the characters have been around for nearly a century. Snyder's reimagining of Batman isn't exactly original, but it is well done. Instead of the Waynes being filthy rich, they're working class. This is nothing new. Plenty of people have taken the Batman concept and created characters who didn't have the Waynes' wealth. It's just not common to see that done with Bruce Wayne himself. Snyder keeps shaking things up, changing the origin of Batman's interest in bats, the way his parents, or I should say his parent, gets murdered, and how Bruce Wayne becomes Batman. Snyder makes Alfred a mercenary sent to monitor the situation in Gotham, taking him off a hunt of a certain man from the Middle East. Bruce's childhood friends are Eddie, Harvey, Oz, Selina, and Wayland. Jim Gordon is the mayor of Gotham. Some people won't like the different take on the mythos, but since this is obviously not meant to be the real Batman, there's really nothing to complain about. But there is a lot to praise because Snyder put together one hell of a story. The story is told from Alfred's perspective. He returns to Gotham to monitor the Party Animals, a violent gang that's thrown the city into total chaos. His handlers only want him to watch the gang, not to stop them, but he's also informed about another player, Batman, and told that if Batman shows up, he's free to take Batman down. At first, I found it strange to tell the story from Alfred's perspective because we don't really know much about this version of Batman, and Alfred hasn't been in Gotham for a while. But we get enough scenes with Bruce to flesh out his perspective, and on my second read-through, I thought it worked much better. Because of Alfred's background, he's able to break down how Bruce became Batman, setting up just how impressive Batman's knowledge, history, and reach would need to be for him to monitor Gotham the way he does. Their confrontation at the end of the book is one of the better moments in the story. I won't ruin it, but I will say it'll put a smile on your face. Speaking of smiling, Nick Dragotta's art is absolutely amazing. The promo sketches don't do the finished art justice. Dragotta's excellent at choosing the right moments to highlight. The framing, the angles, the flow of action, all top-notch. He brings the right amount of kinetic energy to action scenes to make them pop off the page. It feels less like reading a book and more like watching animation. This panel alone has lived rent-free in my head since I cracked open the book. This fight scene alone is worth the cover price, which is a hefty $5. Every page of it has a panel or two or three or the whole page that catches the eye. It's a masterclass in how to draw action scenes. My only criticism is about the angle for the panels after Batman cuts off a guy's hand. I would have liked a more dramatic reaction panel, but everything else, perfection. Wouldn't change a thing. I mean, Dragotta even made the goofy thing with the bat symbol becoming a battle axe work. I think this is a solid start for the 5-issue series. I've seen nothing but praise for it, especially from people who normally don't read comics. Now, whether they're buying the comics is up for grabs, although the first issue is going into its third printing. The last comic that did this well I can think of is Daniel Warren Johnson's Transformers. I'm not going to claim that this is the best Batman comic ever or the most interesting alternate take on the character, but Absolute Batman is definitely interesting and worth checking out. As for the other two Absolute books, I'm not giving Kelly Thompson my money, so I won't be checking out Absolute Wonder Woman. And while I'm not the biggest fan of Jason Aaron's work either, he starts strong but tends to meander and get lost in his own head after a few issues. I am interested in seeing what he's going to do with Supes, so I will check out the first issue of Absolute Superman. Now, it's worth mentioning that one of the reasons DC Comics might have created these new versions of the Big Three is because all of them are coming close to being in the public domain. All their first appearances will enter public domain within the next 10 years, and while Warner Brothers will still hold the trademarks for the names and logos, there won't be anything to stop people from doing their take on these characters. So it could be that DC Comics is cutting off some avenues by doing the most obvious reimaginings of the characters. If anybody wants to do a working-class Batman story, well, DC Comics beat you to it. So you can try publishing it, and they will happily sue you, and probably win. That said, if the Absolute line proves successful, DC will probably add more characters to the mix, regardless of whether it's about blocking public domain iterations. This might help reinvigorate the very stagnant comic book industry. Like I said before, the last comic that seemed to bring it out of people was Transformers, and that was a year ago. If the Absolute series can bring back old readers and bring in new readers, that would be fantastic. You also get the best of both worlds because the original characters remain intact, and the new versions can explore different concepts. As long as the Absolute books don't fall into the same traps as previous reimaginings have, rehashing popular stories, becoming as convoluted and confusing as the main universe, banking on novelty to sell the books, I think this could be the resurgence the industry desperately needs. But what do I know? I'm just some guy.